Hello, my name is Aaron Hall. I'm an immigration attorney with Joseph and Hall, and we are here for our weekly updates on immigration. As a reminder, we do these updates on Mondays at 12:30 Denver time in English, and then Wednesdays at 12:30 Denver time in Spanish. So you can join us for future updates then. Okay, today I wanted to circle back to a topic that we've talked about before, and it's because it's in the news. So I wanted to talk about green card holders, also known as lawful permanent residents or LPRs, coming back into the United States after international travel. Because if you watch the news, you'll see some reports about people who are being detained, even though they have their green cards, when they get back to the airport or the port of entry. And I wanted to talk about what you should look for to know if your case is at risk, and kind of the law that's applied, so that we can talk about how these things aren't actually happening at random. It's not that everybody who has a green card is in jeopardy of being detained coming back in, but there are things to look for. So first of all, when a person gets their green card, it means they're authorized to live in the United States as a resident forever, unless one of a few things happens. They could abandon their residency. They could commit a conviction that makes them deportable, and an immigration judge would have to find that they're deportable and that they can't apply for, or that they can't qualify for any kind of relief from deportability. Or they could naturalize and no longer be a permanent resident. They would become a U.S. citizen. So those are kind of the main things that can happen to a green card. And when somebody travels abroad, the law is very clear that unless that one of six specific exceptions applies, the immigration officers at the airport or at the port of entry must allow the person to come back in and resume their residency. And these things aren't just being pulled out of thin air. They come from the statute. So I wanted to take a look at that. Let me put that on the screen for you. All right. So this is the section, and I wanted to look at the highlighted section. It's 8 U.S. Code section 1101 A13C. But importantly, what it says is that a lawful permanent resident shall not be regarded as seeking admission into the United States for purposes of immigration laws unless one of 6 exceptions applies. What are those exceptions? Well, we can look at them right now. Number 1, if they've abandoned or relinquished their status. So that means if they have signed a form that says I'm abandoning my lawful permanent resident status, then yes, they could be treated as an applicant for admission, meaning they have to have some kind of different visa to enter the United States, or some different authorization to enter the United States. Number 2, if they have been absent from the United States for a period that's over 180 days. So if you take a trip that's over 180 days and you're coming back, then you will be subjected to further scrutiny, and you can be pulled aside. They can accuse you of having abandoned your residency. And so it's a different situation. But for shorter trips, shorter than 180 days, then they must let you back in unless one of the other exceptions applies. Number 3, has engaged in illegal activity after having departed the United States. So if somebody's gone abroad to do something illegal, engage in drug trafficking, something like that, then they'll treat them as an arriving alien, as the statute puts it. Number 4, if they departed the United States while they were in removal proceedings in the United States, then they can be treated as an applicant for admission. Number 5, if they've committed certain criminal offenses, then they can be treated as an applicant for admission. And number 6, if they're attempting to enter illegally, like between ports of entry, through the desert, across a river, something like that, then they can be treated as an applicant for admission. So that's basically what's being looked at when a lawful permanent resident comes back to the United States after a trip abroad. If none of those 6 applies, then they must be allowed to re-enter the United States. So for many of the cases that you see on the news, it might not make much sense that immigration is deciding to detain the green card holder at the airport, but we can at least explain why if you get the underlying story. So maybe there's a conviction that is, I don't know, sometimes it's 20 years old for a marijuana conviction. And the person has traveled a lot of times in between that conviction and now and never had a problem. Why haven't they had a problem? Well, maybe it's because immigration authorities up until now have decided it doesn't make sense as a matter of their discretion to not let the person back in because they haven't done anything that would hurt anybody. If they get put into removal proceedings, they're probably going to win their case through something called cancellation of removal. And so it's just a waste of everybody's time to detain them and put them in front of an immigration judge. So they've just been allowed to travel. Well, anytime there's any discretion to be exercised under Trump 2.0, they are defaulting to the most harsh thing they can do. And in this case, it is detain people. So lots of people in that situation with an old conviction that makes them deportable are actually being detained. And then they'll have to fight their case in the United States. But again, if none of these things applies, then the risk of detention should be quite low. And in many cases, I would say approaching zero. I'll take this off the screen now. So I think the only other thing to look at is if there's something in an individual's case which calls into question the way in which they got their green card, if it looks like they committed fraud to get their green card, or there was something, some defect in the process, then even though they're not supposed to be able to treat you as an arriving alien because of that underlying defect, they still must let you back in, but they could take the opportunity to issue a notice to appear and begin removal proceedings based on the alleged defect in the underlying green card status. And then, of course, we have to mix in that some individuals are being targeted based on political speech, especially on social media. It's not, again, a reason for them to be denied re-entry to the United States. They have to be let back in, but their presentation at the airport or at the border could be the attention that draws the attention ultimately of the Secretary of State to make a charge of deportability if they've been politically active, particularly on some issues that the Secretary of State has been emphasizing right now, which is advocacy for Palestinian rights. And so I would say if you have one of those 6 exceptions, or if you have any conviction or a long trip in your history, a long trip abroad, or if you're concerned about being punished for political speech on social media or otherwise, then I would say absolutely talk to an immigration attorney, do a consultation, make sure you have your risks assessed before you book your international travel, and then you can make an informed decision. Tens of thousands of lawful permanent residents are entering the country without issue. So I don't want it to seem like every lawful permanent resident is at risk coming back to the United States. I also don't want the message to the immigrant community of green card holders to be that they can't go see dying family members in their own country because of this fear, or they can't ever take a vacation for the next 4 years outside of this country. I think it's important to actually assess the risks in an individual case and then take informed decisions. So that's my update today. I hope that it's useful and that actually looking at the law that applies in these circumstances kind of gives people an idea of what's being analyzed by immigration officers at the airport. And again, I think before you take any steps, either positive or negative, before you say I'm never taking a trip abroad again, or before you book a trip, I definitely think that that it's worth doing a consultation with an immigration attorney if you have any doubts. And the attorney might decide that it's appropriate to take a letter from the attorney explaining why they have to be let back in. That's it for today. We will see you on Wednesday again. That's 12:30 Denver time in Spanish, and then we'll be back in English next Monday at 12:30. Thank you all, and hope you're having a good start to the week.